Have you ever found yourself staring at two paths in life, both demanding something of you, both carrying a cost you would rather not pay? Perhaps it was the decision to leave a stable job for something uncertain but deeply meaningful. Or maybe it was the choice to stay in a relationship that gave you comfort but no longer gave you growth. These are the kinds of moments that strip away the illusions of control and force us to confront who we really are. And the truth is, we often stand paralyzed, terrified of choosing wrongly. But let me ask you, what if the problem is not the difficulty of the choice itself, but the way we have been taught to look at it? What if the real challenge is not in deciding between two roads, but in understanding what kind of person we become when we choose one over the other? The Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire while wrestling with his own inner storms, faced dilemmas far greater than most of us will ever know. Yet in his meditations, he never seemed obsessed with outcomes. He cared far more about whether his actions aligned with virtue, with courage, with justice. In other words, he understood that a wrong decision is not the one that fails in the world's eyes, but the one that corrupts your character. Think about that. How many of your sleepless nights have been wasted on trying to predict the consequences of a choice, when the one thing you could actually control, the integrity you bring to that choice, was left aside? Today, I want to invite you into this reflection. What can Marcus Aurelius teach us about difficult choices? Not in the abstract sense of philosophy, but in the raw, lived reality of our jobs, our relationships, our disappointments, and our responsibilities. This is not about quick solutions or tricks to hack your way out of problems. It is about facing the mirror with honesty and asking, am I choosing as the person I want to become, or as the person I fear I am? Before we dive in, I want you to pause for a moment and recall one difficult choice you are carrying right now. Hold it in your mind, because as we walk through this journey, you may see it in a very different light. And if you've ever struggled with the weight of decision, let me know in the comments. What is the hardest choice you've ever had to make? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you can keep walking this path of reflection with us. Imagine this. Instead of approaching every difficult choice with dread, fear of failure, or the paralysis of what if, you could see each decision as an opportunity to shape your soul. Picture yourself standing at a crossroads, not as someone who is about to lose something, but as someone who is about to define who they are. How different would that feel? What if, instead of asking, which choice will hurt less, you asked, which choice will make me stronger, wiser, more just? Imagine carrying that mindset into your career decisions, your relationships, or even those small everyday choices where you normally default to convenience. Suddenly, the weight shifts. It's no longer about avoiding pain, but about cultivating character. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world of constant uncertainty, plagues, wars, betrayals, but he never pretended he could control those outcomes. What he did control was his commitment to act according to reason, justice, and courage. He believed that every choice was not about securing safety, but about becoming worthy of himself. Can you picture what your life might look like if you adopted that same lens? Think for a moment about the last time you agonized over a decision. Maybe it was accepting or declining an opportunity. Maybe it was speaking up when silence felt safer. Now imagine that same moment, but with Marcus standing beside you whispering, "You cannot know the outcome. You can only know whether you acted with integrity." How much lighter would your burden have been? We are conditioned by society to imagine choices as doors that lead to success or failure. One door hides the prize, the other, disaster. But what if the doors are not about fortune at all? What if each one is simply an arena where you are called to practice virtue? That shift transforms the entire landscape of decision-making. So let's ask, if you could reframe your current difficult choice as an opportunity to shape your character, how would you see it differently? Would you still hesitate the same way? Or would you feel a strange sense of liberation, knowing that what truly matters is not winning, but becoming? Take that thought with you for a moment. Hold your choice in your mind again, and imagine it not as a trap to escape, but as a path to becoming someone you admire. We often believe that the hardest part of a difficult choice is predicting the outcome. We obsess over questions like, What if this fails? What if I regret it? What if I lose everything I've worked for? But here lies the illusion. No human being, not even the wisest emperor, can control or foresee the consequences of every decision. Our culture teaches us to chase certainty, but certainty is an illusion that enslaves us. Marcus Aurelius confronted this head-on. He ruled over an empire teetering on chaos, yet he reminded himself daily that he could not control the tides of fortune. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." In other words, what destroys us is not the event itself, but our clinging to the fantasy that we can control it. Think about how much energy you've wasted trying to calculate every possibility, as if life were a chess game with perfect foresight. The reality is harsher but also liberating. You will never know every outcome, and you don't need to. The true measure of a decision is not its result, but its alignment with who you aspire to be. Here is the disruptive truth. The obsession with outcomes is not a sign of wisdom, but of fear. It's the fear of being exposed, of being wrong, of being judged. And ironically, the more we fixate on avoiding regret, the more we create it. Because in trying to live safely, we often betray ourselves. Marcus did not avoid difficult decisions. He embraced them as his duty. He knew that choosing with virtue meant peace, even if the world collapsed around him. That is the rupture we need today, to abandon the cultural myth that a good decision is the one that guarantees comfort or success. A truly good decision is one that keeps your soul intact. So ask yourself, are you making choices to protect yourself from imagined disasters? Or are you choosing in a way that reflects the best version of who you want to be? This is not about reckless risk-taking. It is about courage. The courage to let go of control, and instead to anchor yourself in integrity. When you grasp this, the question shifts forever. No longer, what will happen if I choose wrong? But rather, who will I become if I choose this? That is the beginning of true freedom. When life corners us with choices that feel unbearable, it is tempting to believe that we are uniquely cursed, that no one has carried such a heavy burden before. But history tells another story. Marcus Aurelius, the last of the so-called 5 good emperors, lived through plague, war, betrayal, and personal grief. And yet, in the quiet moments he recorded in his meditations, he left us a map for navigating our own dilemmas. He did not write as an untouchable ruler, but as a man wrestling with fear, loss, and uncertainty, just as we do. He confessed his struggles with anger, temptation, and doubt. But through it all, he grounded himself in the principles of Stoic philosophy: justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom. These virtues became his compass, not the shifting winds of fortune. Modern psychology echoes this ancient wisdom. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of concentration camps, argued that the ultimate freedom of a human being is the ability to choose one's attitude in any circumstance. Like Marcus, Frankl did not promise that life would spare us from suffering or loss. He showed that dignity lies in choosing how we face those moments. The power of these voices, separated by centuries but united in truth, is this: the weight of a decision does not come from the external stakes, but from the internal alignment with values. We suffer less from the consequences of our choices than from the betrayal of our own principles. When Marcus advised himself to act as if you were already dead, he was reminding himself that life is fleeting, that outcomes are beyond our control, but character endures. Frankl echoed the same truth. Even in the bleakest circumstances, we are never robbed of the freedom to respond with meaning. This is not abstract philosophy. It is a lived, practical wisdom. Both men knew suffering intimately, and yet they testify that peace does not come from perfect control, but from faithful alignment with values. So here is the question for you. Whose voice are you letting shape your choices? The anxious voice of a society obsessed with outcomes, or the steady voice of wisdom that calls you back to virtue? History and psychology both suggest the same answer: align with what is right and let the rest unfold as it will. When you think about a difficult decision, what usually rises first? Anxiety. Endless what-ifs. The image of losing something you value, or the fear of stepping into the unknown. But underneath that noise, There is often an invisible pattern at work, one that quietly shapes the way you decide. Most of us don't actually choose based on values. We choose based on avoidance. We try to dodge discomfort, embarrassment, rejection, or loss. Our brains are wired to favor short-term relief over long-term growth. This is why people stay in unfulfilling jobs for years, because the pain of uncertainty feels worse than the slow erosion of meaning. This is why relationships linger long past their health, because the ache of leaving feels sharper than the dull ache of staying. Marcus Aurelius recognized this tendency even in himself. He wrote about the temptation to give in to ease, to sleep longer, to avoid hard duty. But he reminded himself that he was not born to live as a slave to comfort. He was born to live as a rational being, responsible for justice, integrity, and service. He exposed the invisible pattern that still rules us today, the constant pull to choose what is easy instead of what is right. And here's the painful truth. Most regrets in life do not come from the bold risks we took. They come from the silent compromises, the decisions we made in fear. We often regret not having spoken, not having tried, not having stood firm. These regrets fester because deep down we know we surrendered our agency to the pattern of avoidance. So ask yourself, when you face your current dilemma, are you leaning toward the choice that avoids discomfort, or the choice that honors your character? Sometimes the right path feels heavier at first, but lighter over time. The wrong path feels light now, but it drags like a chain for years to come. The invisible pattern is always this: comfort now, regret later, or courage now, freedom later. Seeing this clearly is half the battle. Once you name it, the power shifts back to you. So pause, breathe, and ask, what is really guiding me right now? Fear of loss, or the desire to live with integrity? That single question has the power to dismantle the invisible chains holding you back. There are moments when long explanations fall flat, when the heart needs not theories, but a single phrase sharp enough to pierce through confusion. Marcus Aurelius mastered this art in his meditations. He wrote short reminders to himself, sentences that carried enough weight to realign his soul in the middle of chaos. Today we can borrow this same practice. Here are a few truths, condensed into words that can stay with you the next time you face a difficult choice. A choice made in fear is already a loss. What harms your character cannot help your life. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear decide. Every decision is practice. You are training your soul for who you will become. The outcome is fortune's realm. The choice is yours. These are not motivational slogans. They are reminders of reality, meant to break the spell of panic and bring you back to clarity. They echo Marcus's insistence that the only true failure is the corruption of one's own integrity. Think about it. How often do we torment ourselves with calculations, when what we really need is a simple anchor, a phrase that can pull us out of the spiral and remind us what truly matters? This is why short, piercing truths are powerful. They bypass the noise and strike directly at the center of your being. Try this. Write down one sentence that captures your highest value when making decisions. Keep it close, on your phone, on your desk, even in your pocket. The next time you feel trapped between two painful options, return to that phrase. Let it guide you like a compass, not toward comfort, but toward the kind of person you want to be. Marcus carried his phrases through battlefields, betrayals, and sleepless nights. They were not luxuries but lifelines. You can do the same. So the next time you are drowning in indecision, don't ask for guarantees. Whisper to yourself instead, what choice will strengthen my soul? That one sentence may be enough to cut through the noise. At first glance, difficult choices feel like chains. We tell ourselves, if only I knew the outcome, I'd be free. But here lies the paradox. True freedom does not come from knowing the future. It comes from surrendering it. Marcus Aurelius wrestled with this same tension. As emperor, he could command armies, shape laws, and hold power over millions of lives. Yet in his journals he admitted again and again that the future was beyond his control. His freedom did not lie in bending the world to his will, but in aligning his will with reason and virtue. The paradox is that by accepting limits, he found peace. We, on the other hand, often reverse this. We believe freedom means keeping all options open, delaying choices, avoiding commitments. But the longer we cling to every possibility, the more trapped we feel. Freedom is not endless options. Freedom is the courage to choose, and to stand by that choice. Consider this duality. On one side, fear tells you that deciding will trap you. On the other, wisdom shows you that indecision is the real prison. By choosing, you cut away infinite possibilities, yes, but you also cut away the weight of endless what-ifs. You enter a narrower path, but one that is walkable. This is why Marcus urged himself to act without hesitation when the path of virtue was clear. For him, the question was not, which path guarantees success, but which path allows me to live as a just and courageous man? When you see this, the paradox resolves. Limits do not shrink your life, they define it. Think of an artist staring at a blank canvas. Infinite possibilities stretch before them, yet nothing exists until they commit brush to canvas. In the same way, your life does not expand by keeping every option open. It expands by choosing with integrity, one brushstroke at a time. So here is the paradox to hold close. Freedom is not the absence of constraints, it is the act of willingly embracing the right ones. When you choose according to virtue, you may lose certain paths, but you gain something far greater, the clarity of a life that is fully your own. When we stand before a difficult choice, our instinct is to focus on what we might lose: security, reputation, stability, comfort. We frame the decision in terms of risk, as though life were a game of protecting what we already hold. But Marcus Aurelius would remind us that the true reward is never in what we keep. It is in who we become through the struggle. Think back to the hardest choice you have ever made. At the time, it may have felt unbearable, like stepping into darkness. But now looking back, can you see how it shaped you? How it carved strength where there was weakness or revealed values you had not fully owned before? The reward of difficulty is not ease, but transformation. Marcus did not survive plagues and wars by clinging to comfort. He grew into wisdom because he dared to choose virtue when it cost him something. Every painful decision became a forge. And this is the promise hidden in your own crossroads. If you dare to choose not by fear but by integrity, you will carry away not only the result of the choice, but a stronger version of yourself. Modern psychology affirms this truth. Researchers on resilience have found that growth often emerges not in spite of hardship, but because of it. The very act of enduring difficulty with purpose rewires us. It deepens empathy, strengthens willpower, and clarifies priorities. In other words, the reward of a difficult decision is not the outcome, it is the person you are sculpted into along the way. So what does this mean for you? It means that even if the decision costs you something, status, approval, comfort, the gain is invisible but priceless. A clearer conscience, a steadier heart, and the quiet dignity of knowing you acted as the person you long to become. When you look at your current dilemma, try shifting the frame. Instead of asking, "What might I lose?" but ask, "What might I gain in strength, wisdom, or character if I walk this hard path?" That single change in perspective transforms fear into possibility. And here is the deeper reward. When you choose with integrity, you may not always win in the eyes of the world, but you will always win in the one arena that truly matters, the shaping of your soul. To make sense of Marcus Aurelius's wisdom on difficult choices, we need a framework, a structure that helps us ground lofty ideas into daily practice. That framework is the Stoic philosophy of the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These were not abstract ideals for Marcus. They were the compass he carried into every decision. Wisdom is the ability to see reality as it is, without illusion. When faced with a choice, wisdom asks, "Am I seeing clearly, or am I blinded by fear and desire?" Justice asks, "Does this choice honor my responsibility to others? Does it respect fairness and truth?" Courage whispers, "Am I willing to endure discomfort, loss, or criticism for the sake of what is right?" And temperance reminds us, "Am I choosing with balance, or am I driven by excess, impatience, or vanity?" These virtues form a grid through which you can filter every decision. Instead of obsessing over outcomes which belong to chance, you ask whether the choice aligns with these pillars of character. It simplifies the chaos. You no longer have to predict the future. You only have to measure your present integrity. Modern psychology mirrors this Stoic framework. Cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most effective approaches for treating anxiety and indecision, rests on the same foundation. You cannot control events, but you can control how you interpret and respond to them. By aligning your thoughts and actions with clear principles, you free yourself from paralysis. Think of this framework as a lens. When you hold your current dilemma up to it, what do you see? Maybe one option feels safe but violates justice because it harms others or betrays truth. Maybe another option terrifies you, but it aligns with courage. Through the lens of virtue, the fog of uncertainty begins to clear. Marcus never claimed this path was easy. In fact, he admitted often that he stumbled. But he kept returning to the framework because he knew it was the only compass worth trusting in a world ruled by chance. So here is the challenge. Take your difficult choice and filter it through wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Ask yourself, not which option feels easier, but which option leaves your soul uncorrupted. That framework may not make the choice painless, but it will make it clear. We have walked with Marcus Aurelius through the terrain of difficult choices. We have seen how the weight of decision is not in predicting outcomes, but in shaping our souls. We have uncovered invisible patterns of avoidance, reframed freedom as the courage to choose, and grounded it all in the timeless framework of virtue. Now the question remains, what will you do with this? The truth is, every one of us is already carrying a decision right now. Maybe it's a small one, like whether to speak up in a meeting or stay quiet. Maybe it's a life-altering one, like leaving a job, committing to a relationship, or walking away from one. The size of the decision does not matter. What matters is this. Will you let fear choose for you, or will you step into integrity? Marcus Aurelius faced decisions with the full awareness that he could lose battles, allies, even his life. Yet he reminded himself daily that no external outcome could rob him of the freedom to act with justice, courage, and wisdom. That same freedom is available to you. No matter how tangled the dilemma feels, you always hold one unshakable power, the ability to choose in alignment with your values. And here is the paradoxical gift. When you do that, regret loses its grip. Outcomes may still hurt, but your conscience will remain whole. You will know that you did not sell yourself short, that you chose not the easier path but the truer one. That knowledge brings a kind of peace no external success can buy. So here's my invitation to you. Take the choice you are carrying right now and hold it up to the light of virtue. Ask, what would justice require of me? What would courage look like? What would wisdom counsel? What would temperance restrain? And then, act. Not recklessly, not carelessly, but faithfully, knowing that character is the true reward. I want to hear from you. What is one difficult choice you are facing, or one you have faced in the past that shaped who you are today? Share it in the comments, not just to speak your truth, but to remind others that they are not alone in their struggle. If this reflection stirred something in you, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and join us in building a community of people who dare to choose with integrity. Because in the end, the real measure of life is not the comfort we preserve, but the character we form.